Hello again. Today I'm going to talk about time schedule. Why should you use a time schedule in a bikepacking race as opposed to a distance schedule? Well, it's all about trying to control the controllable. I mean, certain things are within your control and certain things are not within your control. And covering a certain distance each day isn't really totally within your control, but riding for a certain time is within your control. So for instance, if things go wrong, you like having a mechanical problem or a puncture, or even if the weather conditions aren't amenable to your distance target, then or you might get ill or fall off or something like that, you won't be able to meet your distance schedule, and that could happen in the first few hours of the event. And then your schedule will be all off and you won't be able to follow it and you'll get stressed, and therefore everything's gone to pot and your plan's a mess and no use anymore. Whereas if you're working to a time schedule, if you have a mechanical problem, you deal with it, you continue to the end of the day, you have your break, you have your sleep, and you get up and you start again the next day and you're still on schedule, or you're back on schedule. So that's the basis of using time as opposed to distance. So obviously it's if you want to get to the finish in a certain time to get to the finishing party or achieve a cut-off or win the race, you need to have you have to use distance in your planning process. But that's the idea, is you use your average speed to work out what distance you expect to cover each day, to have an overall idea of where you're working and where you might be at certain times, so that you can plan your resupply and your recoveries. But you should still ride to a time schedule. So what might that time schedule be? Well, you might ride, so for instance Jenny Graham, when she did a round the world ride, she was aiming to get 6 hours sleep. She's a bit of a faffer, so she'd have an hour either side of that, so that's 8 hours recovery overnight, and that leaves 16 hours of riding time during the day. So that's still quite a lot of riding. And other people have more recovery and other people aim to have less recovery. If you're doing a short event, you may manage on 4 hours sleep a night. If you're just doing it like something that's going to take you, maybe 3 days. Another reason to work with time and a regular repeatable schedule is that you may have certain highs and lows throughout the day. I was just chatting with one of the athletes that I coach yesterday, and she reminded me that she always has a low point after 1 o'clock, between sort of 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, or 1 and 4. And at that time, she's more likely to make mistakes. She might get lost or make navigational errors, or even guess, she's at higher risk of falling off. And because she's now aware of that, she can, if she does get lost, she can take a step back and think, oh, well, I need to concentrate a bit harder because it's my bad point. And then another point is that in training, you can train towards time schedule wherever you live. So for instance, say you wanted to do the Trans-Pyrenees race, which is really hilly. It's very unlikely that you could find suitable terrain to be specifically doing the long climbs that you would be doing in the race. But you can do rides that are of similar duration as you would be doing in the race, and you can practice training towards this time schedule. If you get the correct gearing for the event, then you'll still be pedaling at a similar cadence and putting a similar level of effort in. But you obviously won't be doing the hills in training, but you will be doing the time in training, and that's the important factor. You can do the time and the intensity and practice towards some ride schedule, but you can't really practice towards a distance schedule. And also, in such a hilly event, if you've got no experience of it, it's very difficult to actually have a distance schedule to work towards, even if things did go exactly to plan. So having said all that, and having a time schedule, which might be get up, ride 12 hours, have a break, have a meal, ride a bit more, go to sleep. It's important to be flexible within that schedule. So if things go wrong, what are you going to do? So for instance, one of the athletes I worked with had a mechanical problem in the Transcontinental race a couple of years ago, and the bike shops were all shut. So she used that time to stop, have a meal, book into a hotel so she could have a really good sleep, clean her stuff, and wait for the bike shop to open. And she went on to finish, I think she was 3rd female that year. So using your time wisely, and then the next day she'd be back on schedule. She's got a bike fixed, she's back on her time schedule, and she can ride according to that. It might also be, if the weather's really bad, the weather might be really inclement. For instance, in that particular year at the Transcontinental, it was really hot, and the same rider, actually, she chose to ride overnight, and that worked really well. So she still followed the same time, trying to ride for the same amount of time each day and have a similar sort of recovery, but she just switched it all around a bit. So that's it. You still need to be flexible, but once you've got this framework and you know when you're good, when your good periods are, and when your tired periods are, and when it might be better to take a break, or if something goes wrong, not to stress out, because things are more likely to go wrong at certain times of day. So the time schedule is just a much less stressful way of working and a much more effective way of racing, and that's it. So I hope you found this useful, and if so, and you like these sort of videos, then please subscribe and click the bell so that you get a reminder, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.